Hello, welcome to part 3 of this series for headaches or cephalgias. Part 3 of this headache series is all about headache centers. So let's go back a little bit. Part 1 were the basics of headaches. Now remember, first of all, I'm not a doctor. And second one, this is all based on my experiences. So even though this is a general headache series and it is particular or it does help all types of headaches, the types of headaches I mentioned, I do cover are based on my experience. So if your type of headache is not mentioned here, it does not mean these videos are not for all types of headaches. In other words, what I am referring to can help all types of headaches. The basics. In other words, what happens when all of a sudden you start having repeated headaches? What are the steps to take? What are the possible treatments, perhaps steps that you can't take? And what are some of the response you may have to take on from doctors? In other words, from the tests your doctors are going to do, your general practitioner, to going to a neurologist, that specializes in headaches, to undergoing perhaps a CAT scan, an MRI, blood tests. And then from there, if your headaches are still not managed, perhaps you might have to, which is the next step, go to a pain clinic. This is a clinic that is just for day visits. In other words, you go in and they are more specialized in that. Usually they belong to a bigger research university. They are usually established by a neurologist who has been treating pain for a very long time. Again, this is not the same as palliative care, so let's not get the two confused. And in these pain clinics, there are usually rooms such as ORs, small ORs, where you can get treatments like nerve blocks. And why are these specialized? Because they're very hygienic rooms and they do things that are invasive. So they will do things like Botox treatments. They will do, like I mentioned, nerve blocks. They will do what's called, in lame terms, burning the nerve or freezing the nerve. Those are two separate treatments, but they basically go at the same thing. Basically, they try to treat a nerve so that you don't feel pain anymore. And this is usually for the treatment of occipital neuralgia, depending whether you have major occipital neuralgia or minor occipital neuralgia. These are some of the things that can happen at a pain clinic. Why? Because you go and then you go home. Hopefully that treatment will be lasting and then you don't have to climb to the next level. The next level, and these usually, I've never seen a case where it doesn't take years, but if you're lucky enough to climb to this level quickly, then I was going to say lucky, but it probably means that you are a very severe case, so I'm sorry. But if you get to the case where you are, where your headaches are still unmanageable, then you go to what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a headache center. Again, it can go under many names. So if you have heard of other headache centers throughout the country and they're called clinics, don't get confused. The difference is you are hospitalized. Why is this so important? And why do I keep talking about this? Okay, the part 2 of my series was about pain clinics, right? So part 1 was the basics of headaches. Part 2 was about headache centers. Headache clinics, and this part 3 is about headache clinics. Why is this so important? Why do I make these differentiations? Because this hospitalization is actually FDA approved. These are the only headache clinics that have permission from the FDA to hospitalize a patient for the purpose of treating headaches. This is very important. For the purpose of treating headaches. So understand that when you go to the ER because you have a headache, unless there is another condition or underlying illness, you really are not supposed to be hospitalized for the treatment of headache alone. That is not under the guideline of FDA, which I did not know, right? I went to the hospital and I was like, I feel terrible. Why am I not being hospitalized? No, they're not allowed to. They give you treatment and then they release you. You go home. So you could be in the hospital all day in the ER being treated for your headache, but then bye-bye. These centers actually have permission to take you in and treat you until your cycle is broken, your pain cycle is broken. That is why they are relevant or important. So let's talk about the steps to get here. Just like with pain clinics, you either call or you get referred to. It usually takes a while to get an appointment. You send them your background information, your medical bio. I again recommend that you have all this set up and you have sort of like, a bulk of stuff, or that your doctor does, your neurologist does. They send them all the information. And then they call you. They ask for your insurance information, your personal information, yada, yada, yada. And you get an appointment. The first appointment will be with your assigned neurologist. If you have a referred neurologist, which will be the best, then you see that neurologist directly. This will be your first consultation. My suggestion is you bring the journal we discussed in the headache basics in part 1 and a list of questions. Why is this important? Perhaps you're not like me, but I get very nervous in these appointments. And because I have IIH, idiopathic intracranial hypertension, I also get very forgetful. So I sit in front of this, see, I'm already forgetting the words. I get in front of this doctor and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to say? We know what. And I leave and I go, first, what did the doctor say? And 2, wait, I had this question and that other question and that. Now remember, you're going to a professional that is used to treating headaches and that is used to seeing patients with headaches. They know you're not going to be processing things very well, and they know that you're going to be forgetful, which is one of the things that, by the way, really surprised me. So during that consultation, and it's usually about an hour and a half, they will be going through the information presented to them. This is why I suggest that you bring your past information in a list. I have a document called Medical Bio, where I have all my medication listed, my list of surgeries, my list of conditions, because if not, even my list of when was the last time I had surgery, when was the last time I saw my doctor, who is who, telephone numbers. I mean, it's like 4 pages long. It's a summary, it's like bullet point, but that way if I'm asked something, it's right there. List of questions. Again, I'm gonna say this like 5 times. Bring your list of questions, and bring it like in your car. I have to travel a few hours to get to my headache clinic. In the car, print it out, write it out. But then in the car, if you get other questions, keep adding them. It's not like you won't have the space and the time to ask your questions. Again, I get very nervous and I think, I have to rush to ask questions. No, you will have the space and time to ask what you need. So this is very positive. So once you sit in front of the professional, the neurologist, they will go through all of your information, even though they're going to be sending you intakes and they will you will have to answer a ton of questions. Even though in the office when you get there you will have to answer a ton of questions, the neurologist will go through everything step by step. Is it redundant? Yes, but this is a way for you to build rapport with your neurologist. And they will ask for anything that they feel does not match. For example, if in your intake they say how many days were you without a headache in a month, and you wrote 25, and they say, well, if you were free of headaches for 25 days, that's actually not bad. And you go, no, I thought you meant how many days I have a headache. They go, oh, okay. And so they fix it. So they very thoroughly go through everything. Also, very important point, that you establish during the appointment which types of headaches you have. In my case, as I have mentioned, I have IIH and headaches from IIH. 1. 2, because of the surgeries I've had from IIH, I have occipital neuralgia on my right side. Unfortunately, during surgery, there has been damage to my occipital neuralgia, major nerve pain. This was established during my appointment. And unfortunately, I also have cluster headaches on my left eye, on my left side. This was established during my first appointment. So when I go in, it is not just, oh, I have this type of headache and this is what I want to accomplish. It's, I have these 3 types of headaches. And all of a sudden the professional goes, okay, if we were to take away one type of headache, what would you prefer? Oh, IIH. Heads down. Okay, but we're going to work on all your headaches. You are? Sounds good to me. Make sure you don't leave any stone unturned. In other words, write down. It doesn't mean that you're going there for one type of headache or one thing that bothers you, right? For example, I suffer from tinnitus. I made sure to mention this during the appointment. She is a neurologist, after all. Now, will she be addressing tinnitus during my headaches? Chances are not. But it is important to establish the symptoms along the way. After that first appointment, or during it, the neurologist will start to discuss with you what are the steps that will come out of the appointment. There is a good chance that the reason why you're there is to be hospitalized, right? Hospitalized. So then hospitalization will be one of the choices, probably the first one. So at least in my case, she, my neurologist, offered, and she basically said, so are you open to being hospitalized? And I was very frank and I said, yes, but I would like to know more information. What does hospitalization mean? What I mean, okay, I'm taken into the hospital. What does that mean? So let's discuss this. Hospitalization. What is the treatment of headache entail in the hospital? Why are we being hospitalized? Okay. Yes, in the hospital, you can get more nerve blocks for occipital neuralgia. Okay. But the usual treatment at this time, what is indicated by research, is with hallucinogens. What does that mean? There are basically two types, and I'm not going to be technical. So if you are a medical doctor, you may say, wait, that's not quite correct. I'm trying to say this in very lay terms. But basically, the combination of drugs used is anesthetics and hallucinogens. Excuse me, that's not a word I like for many reasons. But you go into the hospital, you get a PICC line installed, and if you don't know what a PICC line is, I will talk more about it in another video, but it is an IV line that it's more permanent, and they do thousands of PICC lines in a headache clinic. So a headache center. So basically, they go in through the arm and it goes straight into the area around the heart, so that any fluid acts much faster. And it's still temporary, but it is more permanent than an IV line. An IV line can, wiggle around, it can fall out. This is much more effective. So PICC line is installed the morning that you get into the hospital, and then fluids start to be, there's an intake with doctors and everything else, but the fluids start to flow. And they give you IV fluids, normal saline, and then usually something like lidocaine, if not lidocaine itself, that's the anesthetic, to bring your whole body in a state of calm. Yes, there is an intake with a psychologist or a group of psychologists. There is a stress on the fact that you need to be calm for these several days. It's usually 3 to 5 days you're going to be in the hospital. Why? Because the next step is to give you something. For example, ketamine. I haven't had ketamine, at least not yet. Ketamine can raise intracranial pressure, so this is why I have not received ketamine yet. But something like ketamine, and this will or may cause you to hallucinate. In other words, there will be a part of you that feels out of control. There is a part of you that will feel that your body and your mind are not quite yours. And you have to allow it. You have to allow the process to go. And if you're like me, who likes to control the situation, right? And especially when I go into the hospital, I've had issues in the hospital where a nurse has tried to give me the wrong medication or the wrong dose. And I'm constantly asking, very politely, may I please ask what medication you're about to give me? May I please ask? Because I've had to say, I believe the dose is 10 milligrams, not 100. Would you please check that for me? Oh, you're right. So because I have been in those situations, letting go to such a level is not so easy for me. I'm being so honest here. So I literally had to talk to myself, to talk to my body and say, we're not going to let go. We're going to open to this, and we're going to allow whatever it is that happens to happen, because we hope for a better future. And literally what happens is whatever reaction your body needs to have until the headache pain cycle is broken. So you may start to, your hands may start to twitch a little bit, and you may start to have, dreams. I'm not talking about, you're gonna, go dance on top of, a bar or a counter or something. I'm not talking about that. But you may start to have beautiful dreams or see colors, and understand that you're being monitored round the clock. There are nurses coming that are trained for this situation, and they will come, they will be asking you questions. They know exactly when they can continue to give you medication, when they can or when they should decrease the medication. The aim is to break that pain cycle. If the pain cycle is broken for a certain amount of time, then what happens is the aim is that then you get discharged. And the same type of medication, obviously you cannot have lidocaine at home intravenously, but the same type of medication is, shall we say, duplicated, reproduced at home. So you can continue to feel that broken pain cycle so that you're not having headaches anymore. That's the goal of a headache center. They say that usually you will need to, some people don't, but that you will need to return every 30 years or so for what they call a tune-up. But after you're discharged by a doctor, you are given medications and you are followed up by a nurse practitioner or your neurologist or your neurologist every however often you need, and your pain cycle is hopefully not to return. If it does, more action will be taken. This is the aim. This is the goal. This is the ultimate hope for this type of hospitalization. So with this, I'm going to let you go for you to think about where you are in the process. Are you at the very beginning with the basics? Are you in the idea of a pain clinic where you can just go get a treatment and go home? Or are you at the step or considering now that you need to climb and reach one of these headache centers in the United States or wherever it is that you are in the world? And please comment. Let me know, where are you in this process? I would love to find out. I am considering doing another YouTube. Let me know if this would be helpful, where I actually tell my story on on the, what happened to me, especially in a headache clinic, and where I am at in this process. Let me know if you think this might be helpful to you. Because my story goes on. My story, I keep being told I'm a unique case. I'm a special case. I don't want to be a unique case, but I am. So if you would like to know what my story is, let me know. And if you could, of course, like and subscribe, that would be extremely helpful for me, because that helps me to continue being able to do these YouTubes, as I can only sit in front of the screen and do this once in a while, but I need help with the editing, the marketing, putting this online and everything else. So please take the action, make the effort, and do the like and the subscribe. That would really help me. Thank you so much for reaching the end of this video, and I will see you on the next one, hopefully with my experience. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.